The Ray Hanania Show is brought to you by the U.S. Arab Radio Network and sponsored by Arab News Newspaper, the Middle East's leading English language publication, with print and online editions in Saudi Arabia, Dubai, France, Japan, Pakistan, England, and the United States. Listen to live radio every Wednesday at 5 p.m. Eastern in Detroit, Washington, D.C., New York, and Ontario, Canada. Or watch the live broadcast on Facebook.com/Arab News. The Ray Hanania Show is rebroadcast in Chicago at 12 noon on Thursday. For more information on the radio stations, live Facebook broadcast, and podcasts, visit ArabNews.com. And now, here's your host, columnist and U.S. Special Correspondent for Arab News, Ray Hanania.
And good afternoon, everybody. This is Ray Hanania here at WNZK AM 690 Radio Live in Detroit, WDMV Radio AM 700 in Washington, D.C. And we will rebroadcast this Thursday in Detroit again at 7 a.m. On WNZK AM 690 and in Chicago at 12 noon on 1080 AM radio. You can also always go to Facebook.com/Arab News to watch the video of the program. And and then give us your comments and tell us what you think. We're broadcasting live, streaming live on Facebook also. Today, we're going to focus on an event that took the lives of 34 American soldiers and injured 173 American soldiers. It was the Israeli attack with jets and torpedo boats against the USS Liberty on June 8th, 1967. The veterans did not get any help from the government during the attack. The military has continued to minimize it. The Israelis have continued to excuse it. It's really kind of disturbing. 55 years later, and as a veteran of the Vietnam era, I didn't go to Vietnam. I was ready, willing to go, but they decided not to send me. They kept me on an F-111 base in the stateside. But as a veteran who served this country, it's always been disturbing to me that veterans who were attacked never really got the respect, I think, didn't get the respect that they deserve. So we're going to talk about this topic with 6 survivors that we invited to join us on the radio show. I know that we have Don Pagler on with us. We have Ron Kukl with us. We have Larry Bowen with us. We have 2 others also. Make sure, tell us who you are, because it doesn't say on your images, and I want to make sure that I get everybody correctly identified. 818. Give us your name. Up on the top left there.
Ron.
Larry. You're on the
Ron.
right, Ron.
Yeah, I'm sorry. That's all right.
It's my other left.
Yeah, no, I got you, Ron. I see you. I see Larry Bowman. I see Don Pagler. We have one other person on there, and I don't see. What is it? Oh, LeMay. Mickey LeMay. Thank you, Mickey, for joining us. Just to get started, listen, it's rare to get 4 survivors who are going to tell us about an event that really had an impact on our country. 34 Americans were killed. So let's just get right to it. Let's start with, I'll go through the names. Mickey LeMay, let's start with you. The attack itself, and what do you remember that happened that early morning on June 8th, 1967?
Actually, in the morning, we were just, there were flyovers to identify us. The attack didn't happen until 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And we had just finished a general quarters, and what general quarters is preparing for a battle. And that one, I believe, was for chemical attack. And as we finished that, I left my duty station, which was the generator room. I was electrician's mate, 2nd class, in charge of the electrical department. And I was heading up to the 04 level. Now, the 04 level is part of the superstructure. It's a platform, the highest deck that you could go to and still walk around. And as I got up there, I looked to my right, and a fighter jet was flying the same way we were. And he wasn't too high. He was, matter of fact, if we could have waved at each other, he was that low. And the plane was unmarked, totally black, with no markings at all. And I turned to my left where there was a lieutenant And his job was to report any planes sighted by the ship. So I told him, I said, sir, did you see that fighter? And he goes, no, where? And I walked over to him. And as I turned to point to the plane that I saw, another plane, and this was the first strafing, came from bow to stern diagonally across us and strafed us. I looked down and there was blood coming out of me everywhere. And I looked at him and he looked just like me. He had blood coming everywhere. I looked him in the eyes and I said, what the heck is going on here? And I says, I'm getting out of here. And I turned around and ran. I thought he was following me, but he didn't. They found his body up there at the end of the battle, at the end of the attack. And unfortunately, he did die. I hit the ladder, ran, like you see in the movies, just slid down, went to the O3 level and inside the ship. I got inside, and that's when my body realized that my left leg had been shattered and I couldn't stand anymore. The adrenaline, I guess, kept me running to get to safety. So for myself, what I did is I crawled on the deck, went through a hatch, went down another ladder head first on my knee, my stomach, came around the corner, and I was in officers' country. And one of my shipmates says, "Hey, are you hurt? Are you hurt?" And honestly, I mean, we even laughed at this. I looked up at him and I says, "No, I like crawling on the deck." And we literally did laugh at each other.
That's
And
amazing.
my leg was bleeding quite badly, so he threw a tourniquet on.
We also
And-
have Phil Turner joining us also.
Okay,
We're just going through each of the people, the guests. Let's go to Donald Pagler. Tell us, about the attack and what you remember from what happened, Donald.
Well, I had, after the general quarters drill, I had gone to the fantail to relax because I was off duty. I had just started getting into my sleeping 2 o'clock. I was heading a ladder when I heard all the metal hitting topside. Fortunately for me, my general quarters station was on the mess deck on repair party 3. So I just went down to my compartment and through the hatch onto the mess deck. During the air attack, there was no need for a submergible pump. So somebody grabbed me and said, go to the bridge and bring down wounded. So during the air attack, that's what I mainly did, I think, is transport bridge area down to the mess deck. Torpedo, somebody said, take the submergible pump forward. So I got up there just in time when the officer was making the decision to close the hatch to make the ship watertight. And then I returned to the mess deck. I mainly helped with the wounded. I remember Doc Kiefer grabbed me and said, lay down here, and he stuck a needle in me and ran a tube to one of the guys that he was operating on who didn't survive. And that's pretty much it. I will say that from a trauma standpoint, the worst part for me was 6 days later cleaning up the 25 guys that had been blown apart by the torpedo. So
That's terrible. Ron Kukul, tell us what you remember of the attack and where you were and what you were doing.
I was 2 decks down below the main deck when the attack started. I think that that was just after Chow that we had our general quarters drill. And so most of the time, Ray, I was down below. And what these guys saw, I never saw that morning, but I certainly have no reason not to take their word for what they're telling me. But the main part of the attack for me was the going through the attack, being about 60 foot from the torpedo when it exploded, and then being the man in charge of the body recovery. That's really the gist of what I did there. And I didn't see what these guys saw. And on top of that, Ray, I decided to come on here today. I'm not feeling well at all. And I just got through talking with one of my shipmates, who I won't, the name won't be disclosed right here, but I just got off the phone with him. And the man is having a lot of anger problems.
Wow.
Very upset. And so every one of us, Ray, every last one of us on here knows the attack's coming. They still know it to this day. I tried to talk to this man, and I think it finally calmed him down a little bit, letting him know that, this is just the body's reaction. For some reason, my trauma doctor told me several years ago when she found out I was in charge of the body recovery, and she said, Ron, there's no way that your brain will ever remember this. And maybe not, I don't know, because it does. I know that I did it, but my job after the attack was to pick up the body pieces, be in charge of it. So actually, Ray, I'm just on here just to see that you had enough people. Boy, do you have enough people.
I'm very proud that there's so many survivors to tell this story, and I'm really honored that all of you could join the program. I know we only have an hour to do this, but I'm not going to let up on this. As I mentioned, I was a veteran. My dad was a veteran. My uncle was a veteran. My brother was a veteran. We all served, and what you went through is just horrific. Larry Bowen, also a survivor from the USS Liberty attack, June 8th, 1967. Larry, what do you remember of what happened during that attack that afternoon?
All right. Well, as everyone has said, it happened in the afternoon about 2 p.m. And I was setting a manual Morse collection position down in Radio Research 1. That's right down where Ron was at, Ron Kukul. When they sounded general quarters, I got detailed to my general quarters station, which was one deck higher. So I was only one level below the main deck. And I was setting a position again, copying Morse, when the strafing occurred and the torpedo hit. Now, I was probably 40 foot away from where the torpedo entered. And I was right next to the bulkhead that ended up being collapsed, destroyed down below, one deck below us. The torpedo entered our comm center, and water flooded the entire operations area down one level below me. After we recovered from the torpedo attack, we'd been jettisoned up to the overhead and came back to the deck. Another shipmate, Clyde Way, and I managed to get ourselves out of that room and out to the main floor where we could help open up the scuttle to let survivors out from the flooded compartment. Well, it only took a matter of minutes to determine that the scuttle wasn't going to be, useful because we had too many guys trying to come out. So we had to open up the hatch. And the hatch was opened up by Clyde, myself, Lieutenant J.G. Johnson, and Lieutenant Bennett. And once we got the hatch open, I got detailed to the front door of the operation spaces to hand out life jackets to survivors coming out from down below. So I did that, and the rest of the day I was doing triage with wounded. I helped with our PC clerk, John Spicer. He had been hit by a rocket when he was out firefighting. They brought his body into right next to the chief's mess. And Ernie Gallo and I worked with a corpsman there to try and keep John alive, but his whole left side had been ripped open, and there was just no way. Shortly after we had completed our triage there and giving mouth-to-mouth resuscitation, I went outside to get some fresh air because I was winded. And that's when Jeff Carpenter, an E6, I was an E5 at the time, Jeff Carpenter, an E6, was coming back from the fantail, and he saw me and he says, Bowen, go back to the fantail and be the phone talker. Larry Weaver, that's his normal, duty station during general quarters. He ended up taking some serious shrapnel hits. And he was down on the mess decks being cared for by Dr. Kiefer. So I went back to the fantail, observed the torpedo boats on the horizon. And then I also observed the helicopter coming out with I guess they were troopers or something that were going to board the ship to finish us off. And they came out. I radioed that to the bridge, and shortly after that, they dropped a message, in a bag, in a burlap bag. And the message basically was saying, do you have any casualties? Can we assist you to shore? Do you need radio assistance? And of course, the captain told him that to get out of there, we didn't need any help. You couldn't have convinced any of us on the crew that we didn't need any help, but we certainly didn't need any help from Israel when they were doing all this carnage. So.
It's terrible. Phil Torney is also with us. Phil, thank you. I know we got a lot of people, but again, I think it's so important to hear from each of you. And well, just tell us about the attack, what you remember, from what happened. Go ahead, Phil. Do we have, hey, Phil, can you hear us? Nope, I think we lost Phil. I'm not sure if his audio is working. Let's go back to Donald Pagler, if you don't mind, Donald, for a second. Just tell us, what's the general feeling from all of you? Phil, can you hear us now or not yet? All right, we'll come back to him. Donald, what's the general feeling from everybody? And I'll go through each of you, in terms of, do you believe that you were attacked? That the argument was they didn't know you were an American ship, but I thought the Liberty was flying the American flag, weren't they?
Yes, we were flying our steaming colors, which I think was a 5x8 foot flag. And during the attack, our signalman, that flag got so tattered that in the middle of the attack, our signalman ran up our holiday colors, which is a 7x13 foot flag, which is a huge flag.
That's big.
Through all that, they say they didn't see a flag. But they were attacking a converted World War II Victory class cargo ship, which was only armed with 450 caliber machine guns. So we were hardly a threat. As I said in my angry letter to Congress in 1991, even a Cub Scout can tell you can't shell ashore 13 miles away with 50 caliber machine guns. So it just defies all kinds of logic that it was a case of mistaken identity.
And Phil, I think we have you on now. Can you hear us? Okay, Phil Torney. Do you hear us, Phil? Yep. Well, unfortunately, we're not getting your comments there. I'm sorry.
Is he muted?
No, he's actually, it's open. So Larry, let's go back to you and just what's the general feeling of the survivors about what happened? I mean, do you feel that the government investigated it properly? Do you feel it was covered up? Do you think more needs to be told? Generally, what's the issue, Larry, with the USS Liberty? Has the story been told properly?
No, it hasn't. There wasn't a full and impartial investigation by Congress, which is my understanding. By law, they should have done that. The Navy conducted a quick court of inquiry with, I think they interviewed something like 14 of our crew members, but any one of the crew members who said anything disparagingly about Israel got excised out of the court of inquiry document. So they redacted a lot of input. I know that Lieutenant Painter was actually observed them strafing our lifeboats, which we had lowered over the side to help offload some of the more critically injured personnel. And they strafed them so that we couldn't do that. And Lloyd Painter said that during his testimony at the court of inquiry, and that got redacted out of the inquiry. Immediately after the attack, the crew all came together to work and keep the ship afloat. It was every man working to help everyone else, and in our opinion, the attack was absolutely intentional. They knew well in advance that we were the USS Liberty. They actually had us on their war board in their war room earlier in the morning, as I think Mickey said that they were overflying us in the morning, and there must have been at least a half a dozen overflights before the attack. So the crew will definitely say that it was a deliberate attack. They knew who we were. We were flying the American flag, and when one got blown apart, as Don said, the holiday colors were raised. So for Israel to try and claim that they didn't know, initially they came out with reports that they were being shelled from an Egyptian ship, which was actually an old horse carrier. How they, configured that the horse carrier to be bombarding them from the sea was beyond me. But that was one of their initial, oops, we're sorry kind of thing. And of course, then they came out with the fact that they didn't know we were, an American ship. But we actually had intercept from the pilots to the ground control. And one of the pilots, radioed back that it's an American ship. You see the flag, and the flag, the person in ground control told them hit the target. So
even after they knew, even after somebody said that the ship was flying an American flag.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
And Ray, can I say?
Yes,
can I say
absolutely.
something?
Yes.
If they had just hit us with the planes, by the way, that were unmarked, we could not tell you who was attacking us. I thought it was Egypt. Never thought it to be Israel. But when you're circling the ship and shooting into the hull, and you got the letters GTR5 on the bow, port and starboard, on the stern, port and starboard, and then Liberty. As you're circling this ship, you've got all the identity telling you it's a U.S. ship. And also on top of that, there's only two ships in the world that look like us. The Liberty and the Belmont, our sister ship. Other than that, no other ship in the world looked like us. And Israel is too good of a military to know whether it's a U.S. ship or an Egyptian ship.
Yeah, I mean, back in 1967, you'd think, okay, maybe there was an accidental shooting in the beginning, and then they caught up with it and stopped it. But how long did this go on for? Like
almost 2 hours.
2 hours. Wow.
Almost. Yeah.
And I heard. Go ahead.
No way in the world could they think it was anything but a U.S. ship. I can't tell you honestly that I remember looking up and seeing the flag that day. But our captain went by the book with everything he did. I mean, if we went outside without a hat on in the middle of the ocean, we'd be put on report. I mean, he was ridiculous on how structured he was. And the only reason we're alive today is every one of my shipmates. Now, I'm not one of them that saved the ship. I was hit on the first strafing, so I was out of it. But Larry, and Phil and all these guys went through the hell of it and kept that ship afloat. Only because they were trained by our captain to respond like they did.
And,
I mean,
and
there's no way in the world that ship should have survived.
I remember reading also that they had dropped napalm. I think that there was somebody described 850 cannon rocket holes, 5,000 armor-piercing bullets, strafing the lifeboats that you're trying to get people off to save them, all during a 2-hour period. And then suddenly the helicopter comes up after 2 hours and says, "Hey, are you guys okay?" That's just unbelievable. Is it because it's so unbelievable that nobody wanted to believe it, or was it that it was so embarrassing for the government of Israel, so embarrassing for the U.S. government, that nobody wanted this story to really get out the way it was? Because I remember they said, "Oh, this was an accident. It wasn't intentional." But 2 hours of an attack like that just doesn't seem like it could have been an accident. Larry, what do you think?
No,
but go ahead, Larry. I just want to tell them, don't forget the American Saratoga sent planes to our aid 2 times, and Johnson wouldn't allow them come to our aid. He called them back and would not let them come to defend us.
Wow. Go ahead, Larry.
well, I mean, it was definitely intentional. There's, no doubt in my mind. There's no doubt in anyone's mind. I think Phil's got, he had a bird's eye view of what was going on topside because he was on one of the critical repair parties. And I think you've got him on now. I can see him.
Yes.
So I think maybe he's going to be able to chime in and tell us his part of the story.
Phil, can you hear us okay now?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Oh,
but
good. Sorry about that.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, absolutely. Go ahead. Tell us what you remember of the attack, and then.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Ray, for having us. First of all, listen, these guys have pretty much covered of what went on with the attack and everything. What I say really doesn't matter because they covered, but they did a hell of a good job of it too. What I want to focus on, and first of all, I want to say this tragedy in Texas yesterday is it is so sad and so unbelievable. Our country's come to this, and I don't blame the guns. I blame the people that did it. Just like the people that murdered my shipmates aboard the USS Liberty in cold-blooded murder, just like they murdered those little kids in the schoolroom with no thought, no care about who they're killing. All they wanted to do was kill. And the most important thing about this whole cover-up is the cover-up. It's worse than what they did to us, and it's been going on for 55 years. And these shipmates aren't here. We didn't collaborate in the dark to tell our story. We did it up front and honest. Don Pagler's been traveling around the world doing his thing. I was just with Larry Bowen doing a show in San Diego, Jocko Willnick. I hope you watched that.
Yes, I did.
Okay, what do you think of that?
I think it was, I was shocked by everything I heard because even though I've read the book that Jim Ennis wrote, I've followed the USS Liberty Veterans Organization for many years. It still never hit home. You always focus on the political stuff. Why didn't they investigate it? They didn't want to embarrass their ally. But then you realize 34 people lost their lives. A lot of you guys suffered, injuries. Several I know told me that they went through post-traumatic stress syndrome. that this really disrupted your lives. And it has to be worse that they can't even address it in an accurate way that might have brought at least some satisfaction to you. They just made it worse on top of everything that you went through. We have to take a quick break. We only got one break, but when we come back, I want to talk more with our guests. And I really appreciate you guys taking the time to join me. I really think the story needs to get out. And I promise you, I'm going to do everything I can to help get the word out, especially this being the 55th anniversary. You have a commemoration coming up in Arlington, Virginia, June 6th through the 8th, I believe, at the Holiday Inn in Arlington, Virginia. So we're going to publicize that and get people to pay attention because this should never have happened. I'm Ray Hanania. We're going to take a quick break here at the Ray Hanania Show on the U.S. Arab Radio Network, brought to you by Arab News. When we come back, we'll talk with our guests. We have Mickey LeMay, Donald Pagler, Ron Kukl, Larry Bowen, Phil Tournay. We've had a few technical issues, maybe because we got so many people on, but I don't care. Your voices are very important. We're going to take a break, and we'll be right back right after these messages.
ArabNews.com, bringing you breaking news from across the Middle East and the latest on Arabs in America. Get inside the latest headlines with expert analysis and insights at ArabNews.com. Join over 5 million Facebook fans and over 10 million monthly readers. ArabNews.com, news that matters to you.
In a perfect world, everyone would be a perfect driver.
Hands at 9 and 3, everyone.
9 and 3.
Everyone would follow all the rules.
Please, go ahead and merge. I'll make room.
Thank you, fellow driver.
And nothing unexpected would ever happen. Even the squirrels would know the right time to safely cross the road. In this perfect world, you wouldn't have to wear a seatbelt. But in case you hadn't noticed, we don't live in a perfect world. About 1,000 people in Michigan die each year in vehicle crashes, and thousands more are injured. Wearing your seatbelt reduces your risk of death in a crash by 45% in a car and by 60% in a pickup truck. So until we find a perfect world to drive in, make our imperfect world safer by buckling up. A message from the Michigan Office of Highway Safety Planning.
بعد تطعيم أكثر من 3 بلايين شخص حول العالم بشكل كامل بلقاح كوفيد-19 تمت الآن الموافقة على تلقيح الأطفال من عمر 5 إلى 11 سنة. فقد أثبتت الدراسات بعد تجارب سريرية مع أطفال حول العالم أن جرعتي اللقاح المخصصة لهم آمنة وفعالة. يوصي الأطباء بتلقيح الأطفال من سن 5 فما فوق من أجل حماية الأصحاء منهم أو ذوي الظروف الصحية الصعبة. الطفل جزء من المجتمع وهو معرض لأن يصاب بالفيروس ويمكن أن يحمله لعائلته ولمن حوله. احمي طفلك وعائلتك ومجتمعك. لقح طفلك ليكون بأمان في المدرسة أو مع العائلة والأصدقاء وأثناء ممارسة الرياضة. تحدث لطبيبك واكتشف الحقائق بنفسك أو زر موقع michigan.gov/kidscovidvaccine. رسالة من وزارة الصحة والخدمات الإنسانية في ميشيغان.
Imagine you're on a train track. Somewhere miles away, a train is headed your way. You can't see it yet, but it's coming. Slowly but surely. If you have prediabetes or you're at risk for type 2 diabetes, you may be on the wrong track, and diabetes could be heading your way. Bit by bit, the danger is getting closer and closer. So should you stay on the track you're on now or move to make a change and reduce your risk? If you have prediabetes or you're at risk for type 2 diabetes, you may qualify for the National Diabetes Prevention Program in your local community. This one-year program could be the ongoing support you need to put you on the right track. Not only did participants lose weight, they cut their risk of type 2 diabetes in half. Ready to get on board for a healthier future? Learn more about the National Diabetes Prevention Program and what else you can do to manage and prevent diabetes at michigan.gov/diabetes. A message from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services.
Are your hands feeling numb? Do you feel pain opening up a jar, turning a key? Are you noticing that your elbow and your shoulder are becoming stiff? Or were you recently injured in your arm? Hello, I'm Dr. Albanjit Katranji, and at the Katranji Hand Center, which just recently opened down the street from the Somerset Mall, we can provide you with the latest in hand, wrist, elbow, and shoulder care. Visit us at www.katranjihandcenter.com to learn the latest techniques that we have to offer you, and I look forward to taking care of you.
Visit us in Troy at 1565 West Big Beaver Road, Building F, or call Katranji Hand Center for an appointment at 248-869-4263. That's 248-869-4263. The Ray Hanania Show is brought to you by the U.S. Arab Radio Network and sponsored by Arab News Newspaper, the Middle East's leading English language publication, with print and online editions in Saudi Arabia, Dubai, France, Japan, Pakistan, England, and the United States. Listen to live radio every Wednesday at 5 p.m. Eastern in Detroit, Washington, D.C., New York, and Ontario, Canada. Or watch the live broadcast on Facebook.com/Arab News. The Ray Hanania Show is rebroadcast in Chicago at 12 noon on Thursday. For more information on the radio stations, live Facebook broadcast, and podcasts, visit ArabNews.com. And now, here's your host, columnist and U.S. Special Correspondent for Arab News, Ray Hanania.
We're talking with survivors of the USS Liberty communication ship that was attacked on June 8th, 1967 by the Israelis. They've never really gotten a full investigation of this. It seemed like the U.S. government didn't want to embarrass their ally at the time. There was a lot of politics taking place, but that politics seemed to overshadow the real issue that 34 American soldiers, these are American soldiers. You know, I don't care where my parents are from. It's important to me, obviously, as a heritage, but I'm an American. I served in the military, and my priority was always to defend America and defend American soldiers. 173 of those soldiers on the ship were injured, including many of the survivors that are on the Zoom line with me and on radio with me here. We're broadcasting live at Facebook.com/Arab News if you want to watch this later on. And I'll send the podcast for everybody so they can see it too. But let's just continue a little bit about, I want to explore what needs to be done. And I don't know, Phil, if you want to talk about what really needs to be done. What is it that you haven't gotten that the government of the United States owes you, not only as an American, but as a veteran, all of you?
Absolutely. They owe the survivors, their families, and most of all, America. America was betrayed like none other. Treason on the high seas by our own president, LBJ, and his flunkies, and the Congress of the United States, and every president since LBJ to Joe Biden hasn't brought this up because it's too hot of a potato. Now, if our ship goes down, they're going to blame it on the Arab states, and they're going to be nuked. That's a fact. We know that. World War III starts. So this kind of stuff cannot happen. It must not happen. We are here to tell the truth, not be a bunch of haters, but truth seekers. And I'll tell you what, I get really pissed off when somebody puts a gun to my head and tries to pull the trigger. And the rest of these men can attest to the same thing because they went through it just like I did. It's a disgrace. We need accountability and transparency now that we haven't gotten for the last 55 years. It's disgusting, un-American, and ungodly, for God's sakes.
And Mickey LeMay, what is it that you think are owed to you by the U.S. government?
Well, to me, I would just want the truth to come out, that it was a deliberate attack. They did murder 34 of our shipmates and did seriously wound a whole bunch of us. I unfortunately was one of the most critical, physically injured. I still carry 52 pieces of shrapnel inside me. So, but I just don't know what to, it's too big of a thing to come out, unfortunately. I mean, when you have the President of the United States ordering the Admiral to call the planes back and not allow them to come in to our aid, if the planes on the first group had come out, we'd have lost 7 men. A lot of us, me included, would have already been seriously injured. But that's all we would have lost. But him calling the planes back allowed for another 25 great Americans to die.
So there was no effort to stop it on the part of the U.S. They could have, right? So they knew that they had to know the Israelis were attacking you.
Well, we've been told, or I've been told, that President Johnson did tell the Admiral, get those planes back on the deck. We will not embarrass our allies. Wow. Now, that's what we've been told. I don't believe it to be scuttlebutt. I believe it to be the truth. So he knows Israel's attacking us. We think it's Egypt until the torpedo boats come. And some of my shipmates told me when they saw the torpedo boats and saw the Flag of David coming, they felt relieved until they shot 5 torpedoes at us.
Don Pagler, what do you want? What needs to be done?
Well, the trouble is even the ignorance of our own Congress. I mentioned the angry letter I wrote in 1991 to every California and Kansas congressman and senator, because I grew up in Kansas, and they all passed the buck back here to the local congressman in Orange County, Rohrbacher. And he asked me to come in and talk to him, and he sat across his desk at me and looked at me and said, I've read everything you've written, all the material you sent me. There's no way I believe this was a mistake on the part of the Israelis. But he said, I got to tell you, Congress won't touch this till after there's peace in the Middle East.
Oh, my God.
So then in 2018, about 8 of us here in Orange County met with what is now our local Congressman Lowenthal. And it was actually about Betty McCollum's bill about the Palestinian children. And they gave me 5 minutes at the end, and I gave Lowenthal Ennis's book, Assault on the Liberty, 6 DVDs, and what I use as a handout. And he looked at me and said, I've never heard of the USS Liberty.
That's a shame.
Which just goes to, and I was interviewed on a radio show in 2017. And the lady said that in 2012, the Israeli ambassador visited Annapolis, a naval academy, and the midshipmen were forbidden to ask questions about the Liberty.
That's amazing. Larry, what about you? What do you think the U.S. owes not just America in terms of an explanation, but the survivors, you and the families of the 4 Americans, who were killed?
I think Phil mentioned what we're all seeking from our government, and that's the truth. They've been covering it up for the past 55 years, and there's been evidence come out, over the years to prove that it was in no way a mistaken identity. And so for me, I would like to see a full congressional investigation calling on us Liberty veterans to provide testimony so that they can get the truth. It's one thing that hasn't come out from any one of us yet was the fact that after 6th Fleet came to our aid the following day, we had an admiral come on board, Admiral Kidd, and tell us that we were never to talk about it to anyone. And he threatened us with fines and imprisonment or worse if we did. And it was, that was the story all the way along. Even when I came off the ship after the body recovery efforts, I was flown back to Norfolk, Virginia for my next assignment. And I had a lieutenant commander there tell me the same thing, that, we were not to talk to the news press. We're not talk to our families, friends, relatives. Weren't saying anything at all about, the incident, or would be fined or imprisoned. And that's never set well with me. I don't know how they can resolve that. Over the years, people like Phil have written books, and Jim Ennis, of course, and others that are trying to get the truth out and trying to get the story to the American public, but it's still falling on deaf ears.
I saw that there was also a call for, I know that you want a hearing, but there was even a call for a war crimes investigation, wasn't there?
There was, and that was back in early 2000, where we issued a report to the U.S. Army asking for, a war crimes investigation. And the word that we got back from the Army was that there had already been an investigation by the U.S. Navy, and there was nothing more that they were going to do. And that's the only investigation that was done was the Navy's court of inquiry. And the primary thing that they were concerned with was the communications and lack of our getting the message that was going to position us over 100 nautical miles off the coast. And everything that I've seen, that's the only thing that they keyed on. That and making sure that there was nothing derogatory towards Israel in any of the findings.
And any other thing, and I'm sure that you have all been attacked personally. And I can't imagine how wanting a full investigation of what happened to American veterans turns into something that's, they call it anti-Israeli or anti-Semitic, or, that for some reason you don't like Israel. I don't sense that. And everything that I've read from all of you and from the USS Liberty Veterans Organization, the sense I got was we just want the truth to come out. People should know. And now it's been 55 years. They should just come out fully. We have about 12 minutes left. I just want to ask all of you if there's something that you want to say that maybe I didn't touch about that you think is important that the public should know about. What's the most important thing you think that the public needs, the American public needs to know about what happened to the USS Liberty? How would you, describe it?
I'll make this brief and I'll let my other shipmates go on. But I first want to say I'm so proud of all of you being on it. Just very, very important show for the truth and our reunion coming up. But the most important thing to me is our future with our kids and grandkids and everybody else. What's going to happen again? How many other false flags? How many other innocent Americans have been slaughtered or tortured or never thought about again because of the USS Liberty cover-up or before? I mean, is this government built on cover-ups or is it built on the Constitution? And they're not following the Constitution. They're not protecting their American servicemen. That means they're not protecting America, and you can see it going on right now. And we deserve the truth. We're here to tell the truth to help save America. They need to know the truth. God bless you all.
Larry, Donald, Mickey, go ahead. Any of you.
All I can say is what Phil just said, is to let the country know that something is vicious and just as bad as this situation was, like they said, we didn't get any help from the United States until about 9-10 o'clock the next morning. The Russians came alongside and offered us help during the night.
Wow.
But nothing from the United States. They wanted us to sink. The politicians wanted the Liberty sunk because they didn't even send help for the doctor.
So you get attacked at 2 o'clock, maybe let's say about 4 o'clock, it's over. Right. And you're sitting there from 4 o'clock until the next morning with no assistance?
Nothing, except for the Russians coming alongside. And then
Wow.
my shipmates told me that they offered, of course, the captain refused their help, but they offered to stand by, that if we sunk, they were going to pull the survivors out of the water.
Was there a fear that the ship was going to sink?
Oh, I don't think there was any doubt that everybody on the ship was afraid it was going to sink.
Wow.
I mean, Phil and them were part of securing that area. And I'm sure he was one of the strong ones saying, "This, no way this ship's going to survive this." I was unconscious a whole lot, so I can't relate to what they went through. Oh, and by the way, when I was in Germany in October, they brought me into a ward with about 15 Vietnam veterans that were injured. And within 3 minutes, they put me on a gurney, brought me to the private room. And then some officer did come in and told me, "My name is Smith," and it ordered me that if anybody asked you about the Liberty, you know nothing.
Wow.
That's in October.
That's amazing. They just wanted to silence all of you. Donald Pagler, what's the most important thing you want the public to know about this?
Well, I guess two things is one, along with what Mickey was just saying, one of my shipmates that lives in Lawrence, Kansas, said that he was in the forward port gun mount and he was injured really badly. He ended up in Balboa Hospital in San Diego. He was in a private room for 6 months, and an admiral and a captain came in and told him that that they would allow the press to interview him, but here's a list of the questions the press can ask, and here's a list of the answers that you can give them. And he said, "I told them, I can't say this isn't what really happened." And then the other thing is that the Navy did try to send us help. Captain Tully, who was captain of the Saratoga, said that he had 16 planes, 4 tankers, 12 fighter bombers in the air to come to our aid within 15 minutes of getting our distress call. But before they were out of sight, they were recalled. And my wife and I used to go up and take him and Ruth out to dinner once a year. They had retired in Carmel. And poor Joe would sit in his living room and look at me and say, with a confused look, and say, "I never could understand why my planes were recalled." So,
wow, that's terrible. This is a horrible story, Larry. Bowen, what's the one thing you think the public needs to know about this? And just from all of you, I want to thank all of you for sharing this. This has to be traumatic just to go 55 years of not getting satisfaction when 34 Americans are killed and you and among 173 others were injured. What's the most important message, Larry?
I think it's important for our American public to realize that Israel has a hold on our government. There's something that Israel is aware of that makes it impossible for our congressmen to speak out against them. We've tried over the past 55 years to go in and talk to various senators and congressmen about getting an investigation, and each time, if they're being honest, they'll tell you that the IPAC just gets more play than the USS Liberty will ever get, because they fund a lot of the congressmen and senators. So they're not going to bite the hand that feeds them. And we as a country can't allow a country like Israel to dictate what we can and can't do. I mean, when the president should have been given our skipper the Congressional Medal of Honor at the White House, he had to get permission first from Israel if they could give him the medal, but it was done at the Navy Yard. It wasn't done at the White House. So again, they were trying to downplay, keep the publicity as minimal as possible. And you know, if you talk negatively about Israel, you're called, you know, an anti-Semitic, and that's just unfortunate. That's why we as a organization have had so much trouble getting in to talk to congressmen and senators.
That's really shocking to me because we're American, you know, and having served, I just can't believe that that American servicemen who you put your life on the line for the country, and when something happened that they were afraid would embarrass an ally at the time, they threw you guys under the bus.
Well, hey, Ray, it's worse than that. They didn't just throw us under the back, or throw us under the bus. Israel and our own government put a knife right in our spine. And to all Americans, just not us, but all Americans, they put a knife in all of y'all's spine for what they got by with. They care less about what happened to USS Liberty, and we're not going to stop. We're still living. Look at these guys out here. We're old men. Well, these guys are. But we're not giving up. You know, we're here for a reason. Our dead shipmates didn't have a chance to talk, but we're talking for them, and we'll never forget them.
And they had families, they had kids, they're relatives now. That it's not just the four of you that are on with me now, or the ones that were on with us earlier, but everybody deserves an answer. I think we're down to the last couple minutes, and I just want to remind everybody listening that we're on the line with survivors of the USS Liberty that was attacked by Israel on June 8th, 1967. Don Pagler, Mickey LeMay, Ron Kukl was on. He had to leave. He had an appointment he had to take care of. Phil Turney and Larry Bowen. We also invited Joe Meadors. I'm not sure if there was a particular issue why he couldn't get on, and I'm really sorry that didn't happen. Was that a souvenir, Phil?
That is a souvenir. That's 850 of these. This is one of the smaller ones.
Wow. That's
Imagine
amazing.
that, what they did to us. This is the USS Liberty. This is America that got shot at, not just us.
I would compare the Liberty to the USS Arizona. And as much as we think of and honor the Arizona, I think we should honor the Liberty too. And our final minute, I just want to say you guys have a commemoration coming up June 6th through June 8th, I believe, this year in Arlington, Virginia. They can, listeners out there can get information at the USS libertyveterans.org website, correct?
Yes.
All right.
If you want to donate, please donate there too. We need your help financially to keep this going. USSLibertyVeterans.org. Is that right, Larry?
Yes, that's correct.
All right. I'm Ray Anania. I want to thank all our guests on Pagler, Mickey LeMay, Ron Kukl, Phil Torney, Larry Bowen, and even Joe Meadors, who I wasn't able to get on, maybe because of a technical problem. Thank you guys for joining us. Survivors of the USS Liberty attacked June 8th, 1967 by Israel. The story has not come out fully, and it needs to be done. I'm Ray Hanania. We will talk to you again next week here at the Ray Hanania Radio Show on the U.S. Arab Radio Network, sponsored by Arab News. Thank you, guys. Thank you all for joining us. Bye-bye.
Thank you for having us on.